And it appears we are somewhat live, so I'll give it a few more seconds before
somewhat
go. Yeah, because sometimes it cuts it off at the start. So yeah, I'm going to give you give the audience the breakdown of the episode. Kappatoo calls his computer, asking where Simon is, as he wants some information about romance for his upcoming date with Tracy Cotton. His computer informs him that Simon is attending Kappatoo's birthday party and gives Kappatoo some hints about romance, as well as advising Kappatoo to give her a small gift, such as chocolates, flowers, jewelry, second home in France. Kappatoo has dinner at Tracy's, as do Steve and Belinda. All of them have a really good time, and Kappatoo really impresses Tracy with his story from the future about how humans should not burn fossil fuels. He almost comes close to telling her who he really is, but decides against it. As they are saying goodbye and about to kiss, Tracy's mum bangs on the window, interrupting them. With the moment ruined, they say goodbye, and Kappatoo walks off, right into the path of the waiting Sigmasix. Now, I would have directed that differently. I wouldn't have shown the mother at the window before the knock. I would have had the knock and then gone to her at the window. Because then it would be surprising for the audience. Oh, what's that knock? Likewise, Simon is having a really good time at the party Move For organised. Yes, and on the video they cut out I think it was Rock Around the Clock. Because I think it started with Put Your Glad Rags On. I know there's a little bit of the song before that, but I just got that impression. Anyway, Simon is having a really good time at the party Move For organised. Although he thinks the chips are a bit too sweet. They are interrupted briefly when Simon gets a message from the computer to return to Kappatoo's dome. He takes Move For back with him, helps the computer with a question from Simon, and they return to the party. Sigmasix instructs his computer to find a time belt, and he goes back to 1990 to capture Kappatoo. Bring him back home and expose his cheating. Beaming back into Simon's bedroom, Simon's mum advises him that Simon is at Tracy's. After some difficulty, both find Tracy's house, and after making his way there, not being used to having to walk, he arrives completely exhausted and confronts Kappatoo as he is leaving. After a brief chase through different locations using their wristbands, Sigmasix becomes fused climbing bars in the school's gym. Kappatoo leaves him there, says goodbye to Steve at Simon's house, and travels back to his time using Sigmasix's time belt. Once there, his computer alerts the time police and they arrest Sigmasix. The time travel police stop briefly at Kappatoo's dome, and Sigmasix advised them of Simon. But since only Kappatoo is present, Sigmasix quickly withdraws his accusation, not knowing Simon is hiding in the dome. Simon says goodbye to Kappatoo and travels back to his time. It looks like all is well, but he gets a message via his computer on how to return the time belt. As the message has interference, he types in the wrong number, and the belt and him are transported to the ergosphere, whatever that is, of a black hole, leaving Kappatoo no choice but to try and rescue his friend. Over to Jeff.
Well, so it seems like at this point in the future that the war on time travel is about as effective as the war on drugs is in today's world, because it seems to be pretty easy for a couple of teenagers to travel in time. So the time police are probably as busy as the drug cops are in chasing people all over time and space. If it's that simple to do.
And it also might be the fact of the time police don't want to be so effective that they do themselves out of a job.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I was thinking is, did you say it was 2 years in between this and the second season?
Yes, in terms of it was made 2 years later.
So they left him in a black hole for 2 years. Huh?
Oh no! I mean, not in terms of story time. Just
don't tell me about that yet.
Right.
I just meant in terms of the production, that it was a cliffhanger for that long.
I mean, the one who looks noticeably different is Simon's younger sister.
No, see, again, you don't need to tell me anything yet about that.
Okay.
I'll see for myself.
Okay.
I mean, it's not surprising considering her age. At that age, a couple of years tends to.
Yeah, like she's about 13 or 14.
Yeah, those are a couple of the years where most people change the most. So
yeah,
I remember my youngest stepsister, who I didn't see between when she was about 6 and when she was 11, and she looked exactly the same, just taller. It was like you literally took her 6-year-old body and just extended her taller. And then I didn't see her from when she was 11 to when she was 14.
Ooh,
and barely could even recognize her. It looks so different. So anyway, that's just one example. But I liked this episode better than the last one, as I recall, which, even though it was many weeks ago now that I watched it, so I don't remember. But I thought this one was better paced. It seemed to not have any dragging moments. Everything was kind of tight and didn't allow any kind of time to be, wasted. I still don't like the goofy computer doing his voices.
Yeah.
Although it made a little more sense once Simon was actually back with him, to be making the references to things that Simon would actually get.
Yeah, rather than doing them with Kappatoo. Yeah.
Right. Who is not going to get those things anyway because they're 20th century references.
For a production note, that might be because Andrew O'Connor, who played the computer, he might have added a bit to his part in doing all these extra things, and he needs to realize that you're not Robin Williams. Williams.
It's funny. I was about to say the same thing. I was about to say he's no Robin Williams, but anyway,
perfect part for Robin. We've said this before, but perfect part for Robin Williams.
Yeah, and I liked the him getting trapped in the bars, because it's kind of another one of those conceptual things where somebody's sort of beaming all over the place. They don't necessarily always perfectly land in a spot where everything's hunky dory with their physical situation. So you had two different things: one where he's on top of something that he immediately falls off of, and then another time where he's actually trapped in the bars. So
yeah,
I liked that.
Jeff, did you notice that his voice went a bit weird when he talked to him at that point? He sounded a little bit American.
The computer or Simon?
Simon, just those couple of lines.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't notice.
But did you notice how
we've talked about before in Doctor Who how there were, British fans who made fun of Nicola Bryant for her Perry accent, and to me, as an American watching her as a kid, I didn't even notice. It didn't seem weird to me because, first of all, I didn't really get. I was too young to really understand accents. I mean, I sort of picked them up, but it's it didn't really. They weren't as big a deal to me. It was sort of it wasn't an immediate thing where I'm oh, this person speaks with this voice, therefore they're from X. That just wasn't a thing that really registered with me as much. And also because it's her backstory of the character is that she's traveled all over the place with her father or stepfather or whatever it was. So it'd be kind of natural for her to have picked up some different accents from different places she lived. So it's kind of fits the story for her accent to be a little bit all over the place. So anyway.
Right. Yeah, so I said this thing about the Time Police was in the Marvel comics as the Timekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
And they've actually been used in a pretty good miniseries that I've recently watched called Loki. And they called it Time Variance Authority. Yeah, so these things.
There's something else I was gonna. Oh, the part about them being interrupted when they were about to kiss reminded me of. I've been watching this show from '92 called Swan's Crossing, which was a teen soap opera show that Sarah Michelle Gellar, of course, best known for Buffy the Vampire Slayer nowadays, was in before that. Anyway, there's these two characters in that it's just this recurring joke, I guess you could say, is not every episode, but every time they're in a situation where they're about to kiss each other, they always get interrupted by something. So it's enough of a trope in the series that it's in the opening credit scenes. They show them having one of those scenes where they're interrupted when they're trying to kiss. That reminded me of that.
So, Jeff, you watched, I don't know how well you know the 1950s. Do you think they were doing Rock Around the Clock? Do you think that was that dance?
I mean, it could have been, sure.
Because I thought, because I got it off YouTube and they almost certainly removed it for copyright reasons, because music just like straight away, you can get picked up after a few seconds.
Yeah, I know. I've actually seen some pretty effective editing people have done where they've edited in other songs and things like that into spots to try to make it so it doesn't, doesn't completely mute the sound. But I can tell when it's happening. There was one I was watching recently where they edited it very well, but you could tell exactly where it started and stopped because they had to cut it really fast to switch back to so you could hear the dialogue. So it's in that few seconds where it overlapped, you could hear the real song that they used originally. So anyway.
So what did you think of the Tracy Cotton character in this episode?
I liked her better in this episode than I had in the previous ones, mainly because she wasn't acting all like stuck up and all over the place. At least not as much. Her mom still was, but her comment about you used to be plain with those glasses and teeth or wires or whatever.
I thought this was possibly the funniest episode in terms of dialogue out of the 7. I thought there was some good lines in this. Like
I don't think I would agree with that just because I remember laughing out loud at more stuff in earlier episodes, but I did definitely chuckle a few times in this one. I thought there were some good there were some well-timed jokes.
Yeah, I mean that second episode had the gags with like going on the lawnmower, and it's like So that's why I specified dialogue.
Right. There was less physical comedy in this one. But there were some good lines.
Yeah, I like that bit. Squealy's respond well to small gifts, chocolates, flowers, jewelry, second home in France. And then
I didn't even catch that. He said it too fast, so I didn't know what he said.
And then that bit as well. I find that was funny from the mother. He used to be so plain as well. And then I like the bit where Mufor says to Simon, "You're so sweet," and then he sort of turns away under his breath and says, "So are these chips."
Yeah, I didn't really hear that either. So some of those are kind of like a little too under their breath, so I didn't really catch what they said. But
yeah, it's understandable with the accent. It was like when I watched that first episode of Homicide: Life on the Street, and it took me a while to get. That first season or 2 of Homicide, the talking style.
I think you'd probably have even more difficulties with NYPD Blue because I think they're even more that way, and the particular style of the dialogue got referred to as Milch speak based on the head writer David Milch, but really it was more the other guy. Now I'm going blank on his name, but the guy that was the consultant that was a real cop, because having him be like the cop that consulted on the show, basically all of the cops talked like he did. So it made it so that the cop dialogue was, it was authentic, but also kind of humorous because it would get repetitive and that everybody talked in that same way, which was one of the few times that there was a really funny parody on that Mad TV show, because when they did NYPD Blue, they really captured that dialogue by having the cops talking, speaking that way to a suspect, and the suspect doesn't understand what the hell they're talking about because they're talking in this cop dialogue that doesn't make any sense to him. Yeah. Anyway,
I like how Mufor, like some of the slang terms, like that she calls a 20th century song a 20C warble. I like that, and I like the eco Kappa Tracy scene, and also. There was a bit where Simon went Cockney and he said, "He can't go around half-inching my money." What do you think that means, Jeff? Half-inching my money?
I mean, I guess it means using or taking.
Well, it rhymes. So it's a rhyme. You can't go around half-inching my... So it's rhyme for pinch. Half-inch pinch. Also, there's something throughout this series that's a little bit weird. in that I don't know what I would have done as a director if the actor had suggested to me about using two different voices, because you could really see it in this episode that Simon and Kappatoo have got different accents. And why don't people notice that?
Well, in my case, it's probably because I'm American.
Yeah.
So they all, like I said, I was never hugely good at picking up accents, even when I was growing up. But now I've gotten a little bit better at it, but I'll still not. I definitely don't pick up the subtleties and the differences in English accents. You know, that's not something that.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's just really exaggerated, I guess I will. But I mean, someone speaking somewhat normally, I'm not really going to pick up the differences, which is why it was funny that I don't even remember who it was, but you had somebody else. It wasn't Jonathan, but you had somebody else that was English in a video chat I was in one time, and I did my attempt at an English accent, and he said something like I had traveled to like 3 or 4 different places in England in one sentence in my accent, because it was all, you know, it was little elements of different places, because I don't know the difference, so it just all comes out as one thing. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like I've tried to explain the difference to people, and that even within Texas, one state of the United States, I can pick up now. I've lived here most of my life, so I can pick up different regions of Texas in an accent, whereas somebody who's, you know, from England, for instance, wouldn't know. You know, they might be able to tell the difference between like northern and southern accents of the U.S., but they wouldn't necessarily be able to pick up, you know, differences in West Texas versus East Texas or things like that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like when he sounds a bit posher when he's doing Kappatoo. Yeah, the thing is though, either way, you sort of maybe have to think about that, because obviously when Ben Steed wrote the book, he didn't really have to think about that that much about this, because it's like you could say it's unrealistic that they have the same voice, given that they've got different upbringings and societies. But you could also say about recognizing it. So I would have tried to have added something in about maybe in the first episode. Simon, what's up with your voice? You sound a bit different. And then the same with Kappatoo. Kappa, you'd sound a bit different. What's going to try and cover it? Yeah.
Yeah, or they could have just had, you know, if Kappatoo used the computer to like emulate the voice, basically, where he would sound exactly like Simon, whereas, you know,
right.
that would sort of make up. They could have gone that direction and had them speak in the same accent and say it was because the computer was aiding them to do that.
Yeah, so like before they affected the switch, like I said, like you're traveling back in time, you need to talk like this will help you talk like this, and you need to give this, and then at the beginning, Kappatoo could have given it to Simon. Here, take this, and just like say it's a pill. What's that for? Well, it will change your voice so that when you're in the future, you'll sound like me.
Well, I wouldn't even think they would need a pill with all those you know, gadgets that they had them available to them anyway. They could
just press the bell. Okay, the wristband thing. And he goes, what are you doing? Why am I talking like this?
Right, it's just programmed into that, automatically.
Just
Star Trek Universal Translator.
Yeah, but it's just like one of those things, like acknowledging it, something that the audience might notice. Right. Oh, there's some little notes I put on screen. Oh yeah, the accent. I thought for some reason it sounded slightly American, a bit mid-Atlantic when he just 1 or 2 lines there. Then mentioned the timekeepers. Anything else on? Right, I don't think there's anything else on the. I did a bit about Rock Around the Clock. Right then, I'll put that back. I thought the humor was good in this episode, and I liked the scene with Kappatoo and Tracy, and I thought the NS would like that. the eco theme, the sort of story about the house.
I also like that scene that you just passed by there with Sigmasix and Simon's mom. I thought that was done effectively too.
Yeah, I thought she did the comment she played. That actress did well.
Yeah.
In the way she played that scene. And it's sort of a throwback.
What she was saying, the thing about her dome, it reminded me of because it was around the early 90s, I think, when that started becoming part of the slang of people calling their house their crib. So it reminded me of that.
Half inch in my money. Go around off.
Yeah, it definitely seems that they were more interested in developing the Tracy character a little more than they were Mufor, as far as like they really didn't spend much time on her. She was sort of just a plot convenience. And even in the scene where he brings her back to his place where he's talking to the computer, then she's just sort of in the way. So they don't really develop that much. But
yeah, but what I see with Tracy Cotton though is that I sort of see her as I see her as a guardian, and who doesn't like football, and then she's got this mother who's sort of setting a bad example. But in lots of scenes between her and her mother, Tracy sort of defends Simon, and so I thought that was quite well designed for her character. Given that she wasn't on screen much during the whole of the series, I think a little bit of effort was put in there from Ben Steed to sort of like show a different side to her character. To sort of explain why she is the way that she is.
Yeah, and we've had that discussion about the Guardian descriptions that were done decades ago by David Kersey in terms of that. The basic temperament obviously doesn't change, but there are elements with every generation that change. So you sort of see that play out in terms of like she does have a bit of an elitist bent, but not as much as her mother. So she's making this attempt to sort of break away from that. So you still see that, even though people sort of paint Guardians as being, oh, well, they follow the rules and all that stuff. But there's always a little bit of that still, rebel against your parents or don't be exactly like them, that even as overall you resemble them, you're not going to be exactly the same.
And I like the story that involved Tracy with Greg for sort of what it threw light on in terms of Tracy's reaction. Do you remember when Greg was competing with Simon, with Kappatoo for Tracy's affections? And it was all that around in the sort of the school election thing. And then Tracy's response to when Greg got violent and Kappatoo refused to get violent. And sort of like Tracy's response to that. And then when she said something like, it's not what came over you, it's what came out of you. It's in you, Greg. That sort of, maybe from a Guardian point of view, of like, so there's a little bits every now and then where they sort of like did the bits for her character, but it did cram rather a lot into each 20-minute episode, didn't it?
Yeah.
So
the only thing, like I said, I think the only thing that I would have eliminated was some of the computer dialogue.
Yes,
so you could have used that time elsewhere.
Yeah, I was like that. I was like thinking that as well. Like when I watched it early this year, my initial reaction was, okay, you can do the voices, but you're not doing it in a funny way. And I some of the people that he was doing, I think at one point he was doing Bob Monkhouse, and I could get sort of the references, but I think, yeah, I mean, you needed a proper comedian to do, and that sort of wore a little bit thin, and yeah, and his best line in the whole series was "Second home in France."
And I didn't even catch that. So there was something, I don't remember. It's been too long now, but there was something in the early stages of his becoming the human representation that I thought was pretty funny. But I think they definitely definitely wore out his welcome quickly. Put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this particular
And I'm not
episode,
even insulting the actor about,
Right.
it's like he was doing what he was told to do, but I just didn't like the way that they made that character. So
right. So now we're on the we've gone through the first series. Do you want to sort of like talk about what you think of the whole of the first series?
well, yeah, it won't take long, but because basically, I feel like the best thing about it was that it was fast paced, but not in a way that felt like it was rushed. So that part was done well. Most of the performances were pretty good. There weren't like any huge weak links in the cast that dragged it down in any way. Everybody seemed believable as their characters for the most part, and I liked some of the ideas that they came up with, uh, as far as giving. The wristband had its limits. It wasn't a completely magic wand that solved everything. Sometimes it made some things worse. So you had some comedy added from some of the effects of that, and like I said at the time, I think there was a couple of episodes where it got bogged down a little bit and wasn't as fun as the earlier ones, and then I think they finished strong with this one. So, overall, it was a fun thing, not bad.
Yeah. And I won't say what happens in the second series, but it'll be interesting to see how you compare them, because I know what you like. No hype, nothing, or
Yeah, that's one of the good things about it is that I knew absolutely nothing about this series before watching it. I remember you dropped like casual comments about it, but it wasn't hard for me to not remember them because it wasn't some detailed thing that you told me, which I said from the beginning I didn't want anyway. So that's good because the less I know about something, the more I enjoy it usually. Which like just a couple of days ago was my birthday, and my son came over and we watched like 6 years ago now. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but we went to a triple feature of the Back to the Future movies because it was on the actual date that the Back to the Future Part 2 was set in 2015. And the theater had a thing where it was like, come for all three shows and then throwback prices for the concession stand. And, so your popcorn and stuff is cheap and all that. So, we had fun doing that. This time around, stayed here at my new apartment, but we watched all three of the Bill and Ted movies. And I hadn't seen, the difference was neither one of us had seen the newest one that just came out last year. So I was like, well, we know the first two are good. So even if the third one stinks, then at least we know 2 out of 3 will be good. But I did enjoy the third one. And part of it was that I had managed to avoid reading too much about the plot. So I really didn't know what was going to happen. So that was part of what
I think I've only seen about the first one. I used to watch the cartoon series.
Yeah, I've now seen all of the cartoon series as well. So the only bit, like it's funny that ended up being sort of the thing that I'm the most completest about in terms of the universe. The only thing I have not yet seen, and I now have all of them downloaded, is the Bill and Ted live action TV show that also was from '92. So I have been quote unquote recording them. and at some point soon, I'll be watching those on my trusty non-existent VHS player because I threw away the last one I had in the course of cleaning out my old apartment.
And of course,
but it had broken, and in fact, it had tape stuck in it. So it was a sad end for that VCR and that tape.
Well, I mean, in England they still sell the odd one, like sort of like.
Yeah, the last time, I mean, if I get one now, it's going to have to be like just somebody who happens to be selling it somewhere. Because when I looked on Amazon, I think the cheapest one that anybody had on there was like $800 or something, some ridiculous price. So it probably, we haven't hit the retro stage for that like we have with vinyl records. Because you know the vinyl records, we went through that period where they were so rare that they became super expensive, but then they sort of came back. People started wanting them again. So records and record players, the price went back down again.
Yeah.
And so I expect the same thing will probably happen with VHS. I just don't know how long it'll take before that happens.
Maybe what you could look for, Jeff, is something that in England was known as a televideo combination. A television with a built-in VCR.
Yeah, well, the thing that obviously I don't know is whether the videotapes that I have things recorded from TV will be so degraded by the time I'm able to get a way to transfer them into something that they won't be viewable anymore.
I've had a sum like that because at one point I had about over 800 videotapes, and yeah, some of them have degraded.
Yeah, I never had that many. My mother definitely does. She's got like huge boxes of videotapes of so many things she recorded that never watched.
Yeah, and there's still some good stuff from the 90s that was never released on DVD.
Oh yeah, that's thankfully some of those things have been uploaded to YouTube, so I've been able to get those things. A lot of times, at least with American TV series, the shows that didn't last long enough to get syndication deals are harder to find, and those tend to be the ones that didn't get released on DVD because they don't think there's enough of demand for them that the production costs would outweigh what they would make on them. But there have been some series where people there's been enough demand for it that they've ended up making money off those things much more than they would have based on the original ratings of the shows. So there are some that definitely have. And unfortunately, there's a lot of shows where they put out the first season of something and then it doesn't sell as well as they want it to, so they never release the rest of it. Life Goes On is an example of that, where unfortunately the first season is out on DVD with the theme song changed to something else because, of course, their theme song was Obla Di Obla Da by the Beatles, and they didn't want to spend the money to get that DVD clearance, so they changed the theme song. But other than that, the episodes are intact for the most part, but they only released one season out of 4. So, and there's quite a few shows like that where they either only released the first or maybe first and second seasons and then stopped.
Right. So, I'm not quite sure what to give this episode out of 10. I think I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
I'll give it a 7.
Fair enough.
Which is kind of my standard rating for something that's good but not great. Right. So that's my viewpoint on this, as well as the series as a whole. I would say I don't know what the actual average of my scores were, but it probably would be somewhere around a 7. So I'd say for this whole 7-part series, I would give it about a 7. Probably.
Yeah, because for me, there's the nostalgia factor, and the fact that I really liked it as a kid. Like it's just like Wojtek, and you can see there's plenty in there for NTPs in terms of all the ideas.
It's definitely not to further stick the knife into you, but I definitely enjoy it a lot more than Blake 7 overall.
That's fair enough, Jeff. I've come to terms with it.
Yeah,
with that.
I mean, like I said, it's a very different type of show, so it's hard to compare on. But just in terms of my overall enjoyment, this one's more consistently enjoyable for sure.
Right. So hopefully we'll be around next week to review the first episode of Series 2.
As far as I know, I will. Yeah, I don't have any specific timed plans or anything. I'm coming off a week of rest after after the hardest manual labor I've done in a long time, cleaning out my old apartment with some help from my son. So I needed the rest this week, and I definitely feel a lot better than I did this time last week.
So, are you going to go with your P preference, or are you going to turn over a new leaf and have things neat and tidy?
I wasn't sure at first what you meant by P preference, but I'll never be a neat freak. That's never going to happen. But I also am. I definitely don't want to let this place get as bad as the old place did. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And part of that will be easier because Morgan's no longer living with me. So at least it'll only be, everything will be my mess and not the mess of two people. So
Right.
it does make it easier. And because I'm starting from a position of, I can sort of do things a little at a time. It was funny that you mentioned that because as we were cleaning out the old place, we were joking about if there was anybody. I really think there needs to be beyond 100% on the perceiver thing. I need to be like 115% because as we were getting things, there were so many like bags and boxes of things that contained like little bits of stuff from that particular time that don't go together in any way. It's sort of like this evidence of these little of that entire video that I linked to with the guy who talks about the J versus P thing. And he talks about how the perceiver goes through the day and is doing something and then sees something else and is like, oh, well, I need to go do this thing. And then they're doing that. And then something else they see, or they're like, oh, okay, then I need to take care of some of this. And there's all these, it's like these little pools of evidence of that everywhere in that apartment. As I went through stuff, there'd be like a bag where there's like these papers and this and these cassette tapes and this, it's like everything was just little parts of stuff, of like little time capsules from that particular time that stuff was put in that bag or box, and just over and over, like hundreds of that.
So do you think you've gone a notch less P and a notch more J, and maybe the Guardians have some hope that it's like, and they might be thinking at this rate in 100 years, Jeff will be one of us?
No, I really don't, because it really is that I had to learn any kind of thinking ahead, and it's still against my instinct. Because if you still say, how would I prefer to live? It would be to wake up each day having no idea what I was going to do today, where I was going to go, anything. I would prefer to not have to think or schedule anything ahead of time. Yeah. And the more that something is that way, the less that I want to do it at the time. Even like, in the recent seasons where I've been in good enough shape that I've been doing tennis 3 and sometimes even 4 days in a week. Something for a while I wasn't physically capable of doing. And now that I am, I still, as much as I enjoy the tennis, when it's time to go or time to get ready to go, I don't want to. Right. Because it's a scheduled thing. I want to be able to just, now I feel like playing tennis. Let's go play tennis. The fact that there's this obligation to it is the thing that makes me not want to do it. Once I'm there, I usually enjoy it. But there's still that twinge of, man, I want to not show up. I want to do something else because I'm expected to be there, and I don't like being expected to do anything.
Right. Yeah, and I like how you use the word instinct for it, because I've really sort of gone over to that because of Vanderhoop and the way he sort of reframed it and said, Carl Jung putting it as sensing. He says, no, it's instinct. There's more to it than just sensing.
Well, and that's the thing that's hard for me. Like I've sort of learned this stuff over time, and once I was aware of it, things just sort of reinforced my ability to see it. And it's hard to get that across to somebody. So it's not something that's easy for me to teach someone else. It's just something I sort of instinctively, just sort of pick up and observe and recognize now. Yeah. So it's hard for me now knowing myself as well as I do. It's funny when somebody else thinks I'm some other type or something and tries to make that case, because I'm like, you just don't understand all of the things that are the things that go into it. Even when I display something that could be lumped in some other category, I can tell you sort of the steps that it took for me to get there, that there were times that I had to go against my instincts in order to accomplish that. So it's like, but even when I do things that are against my instincts, I still do it in the way that is my instinctive way of doing the things against my instincts. So it's like, you can't ever defeat that. Like, somebody can't really become something they're not, because they're always going to see those things. They're going to make those choices in the manner in which they make those choices. So
and also part of the artisan instinct is to be adaptable.
Right. So part of that is sort of adapting to getting along in the Guardian world in a way that is most beneficial. So that's why when I said about like doing the thinking ahead thing, it's like that in itself is still against my instincts, but I've realized the ways in which I can do that to allow myself to be in positions where I can do that less.
Yeah.
So it's like I can enjoy my life more by doing certain things that allow me to be in a position where I'm less likely to have to not be able to do what I want to do. So there are actions to take to set that up better.
Yeah, and it's like adapting to the circumstances, where in the demands of the circumstances, and and it's like, I like how you said in previous videos where the little things, the little opportunities for the guardian instinct, for the artisan performer role to come out. There's opportunities for humor and role playing.
Because again, all things being equal, my preference is always to improvise in a way that entertains people. Like, that's what I'd always rather be doing the most. But I also realize that at least in my current life and most of my life, I can't do that 24/7. But when I have those opportunities to do it, even within the framework of circumstances that don't seem like they're right for it, I can sort of try to create those scenarios and take the opportunities to do it. So
that's why I'd like you to maybe if you watch the first episode of Heidi High with me and sort of see your reaction to the Ted Bovis character, with this old school comedian that's working in a holiday camp, and and it's like probably based on a real person, where you got these people who are either started their career or the end of the career, and they're working in these holiday camps, just entertaining people on holiday, rather than and they're either not yet got to the big time or they're after the big time. And so there does seem to be quite a bit of reality and heart to it. But I don't want to big it up too much, because I made that mistake with Break 7.
Well, yeah, maybe I'll do that if we finish out where we do some more Twilight Zones.
Well, yeah. Anyway, so I give it 9, and you give it 7. So I'll just end the broadcast.
All right. Bye. See you next time.
Bye, folks.